So welcome back. In our previous lecture, we wired up our health to the health text label. We created these variables and we're now updating this label on the screen. At the end of the last lecture, I challenged you to wire up the food, the day, and the money as well. So hopefully you tried to do that, and we'll spend the very first part of this lecture doing that ourselves. So we know we're going to need 4 of these all together. We can call this one food text. We can call this one day text. And we can call this one money text. Just like that. And then we can copy and paste this 3 times. Make this one say food, and this will be food, and this will be food. This will be day, this will be day, and this will be day, and this will be money, and this will be money, and this will be money. Now we can just save this, jump over to Unity, and if we look at our canvas here, we have our items we're going to need to drag and drop. I can come here to the main camera and click, and you'll now see that these other variables are exposed because they're public, and I can just drag and drop my text items in there. So the food goes there, the money is going to go down here, and the day text right there. And when we run, these labels now are not going to just have their placeholders in there. We will see them updated with the live variables, just like that. Okay, so now that our variables are wired up, one of the things that we'll notice is even though these buttons are on our screen, they don't do anything yet. So the real purpose of this lecture is going to be, let's wire up one of these variables and make it do something, actually affect the values in our life simulator. So because I don't really want to start with eating garbage, I guess we'll start with begging for money. So we'll do this one first because it's always nice to have a little money in our pocket. Plus, we're already starting out with full health and food. So we're going to implement this beg for money button. Now, when we open up our game manager here, remember how we already discussed we have our methods, and that's the start right here is a method, and then we have our properties or fields that hold our values for this class. So what we want to do is let's go ahead and create a new method, our own custom method, and we're going to go ahead and call it a public method. And the reason we're going to make this a public method is we are going to want to access it for clicking our button. So when we click the button, we need to be able to call this method, and just like with our public text objects here, we need them to be public, this method to be public so the button can access it, because if this was private, there'd be no way for the button to see the method. So we're just going to say click, eat, or beg button. So we'll be real descriptive about this because we want to know that we're clicking the begging button. And we need here to have a return value. And if you say void, what void means here, and it means it the same here, this void just means that the method returns no values. There's not going to be anything coming out of the method. Now, as opposed to, for example, if I had this say int, that would mean that we would expect to return an integer here. So we'd actually have the word return, and we would return, for example, we can just do like a 3 here. And that would satisfy the fact that we're saying we're going to return an integer because we're returning a 3 out. But when we don't have anything to return, we just say void. And this method isn't going to need to return anything. We're just going to update our money and say money equals money plus 1. So we're going to add $1 to our money. Actually, let's make it $2 because we also want to do a few other things too, like we would like to maybe increment the day. So we could say day equals day plus 1, as well as we want to use up some food. So let's say food equals food minus 5. And we can do the same thing for health. Health equals health minus 4. So these values are arbitrary for our bake button, and everything in our game, all the items that we create in our game, are going to have different values here of how they're going to affect our primary variables. The only thing that will be constant is day equals day plus 1. So now if we change these variables, we're going to have the same issue here, that it's not going to update the text. That's up here in the start, it's going to update these, but we could just, for the sake of this very first time, copy this and paste it into here. So after we update our variables, then we update our screen objects with the values in our new variables. So that's all we need to do here on our C# side in our script. Let's jump over to Unity and look at our Beg for Money button. And if we click on our Beg for Money button, we'll see that we have our button script, this button component, and you can play with some of these values of, like, if it's highlighted, what the color is going to be, and if they press it, we can make it so, for example, when they press it, it turns a little shade of blue or something like that. But the thing we're most concerned about here is the onClick. We want to create an event so that when the player clicks this button, it can call the method in our C# script. So we just come down here and we click this plus, and you'll notice here that it's saying runtime only. We don't have to worry about this because we only want the button to work when the game's running. You could notice here that you can make it so that the button can work when the editor's running here, just the editor. But we're just going to do it for runtime, and you'll notice it says none here for our object. Well, we can just pick our main camera up here that has our game manager script on it and just drop it right in there like that. And you'll notice it says no function here, but we can come down here to game manager, and it's going to expose several methods. You can see all these other methods that come with the framework, but it's also going to have our custom method here, click beg button. So you'll notice that method we created in our C# script is exposed here in the editor for us. I can just click that, and what we're telling the Unity framework here is that when we click this button script, we want to fire off and run this method, click beg button, inside of our game manager. And because inside of our game manager we're going to be updating these variables and then updating them on the screen, we're going to be able to see this button actually work. So we run and I click beg for money, and see our money went up to 2 and the day went up to 2, and our food is going down and our health is going down. If I hit beg money again, notice our health and food going down, and now we're on day 3 and money's 4. Now money's at 6 and day is 4. Day is 5 and money's 8, and our health and food just keep going down. And you can see now we got $30. So pretty simple, right? We just created one simple method here. We updated these variables by adding integers to them, or subtracting in the case of the food and the health, and then we updated our labels. So now we can already see one problem here. We've got updating the labels here, and we got updating the labels here. And we can only assume that if we created another button, then we could do this. We could say copy and paste, and now we could have a click food button, and that's not going to do anything to money, so we can just get rid of that. And we're going to instead add, say, +2 to food, and we'll still take away something from health. Let's say we'll take away 1 from health. And then we're going to update these variables. Well, we know we don't need to update money, so we could just get rid of that. Not that that is really a big deal, but you can see that we're duplicating this part frequently right here. It's going to be the same. We're always going to update the same. So we could wire this up like this. Might as well go ahead and get our food button going. So we're going to start eating some garbage. And remember, there's a lot of humor inside of this life simulator stuff, a little bit dark humor maybe. But I'm going to drag my eat button in here. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to undo that because I kind of messed that up. We want to drag the main camera that has our game manager in here into our eat button. We can come down in here to our game manager now and click our click food button. And when we run, now when we eat garbage, you can see our food going up and our health going down. Our money stays the same because it doesn't cost anything to eat out of the garbage. So we've got both these buttons working. We could add the third one in the same way, copy, paste, change, and you'd be surprised how many commercial games and games that people really have enjoyed playing have been written using maybe, a lot of these same techniques of you get something that works and you copy and paste it, change it a little, and you build your game out. And as long as it works, that's kind of the ultimate proof that you got your job done. But there is such a thing as good programming and good design. And this is very poor programming, very poor design, because we're duplicating so much effort. Now, you might already be able to think ahead and think, okay, well, let's create a method that is just responsible for updating these labels, and we'll just call it after we update our variables. And if you're thinking that, then that would be a correct way to think. And we're going to do that right now. We're going to create a method that says update UI. And that's just for update our user interface. And we're going to take and cut these and paste them in here. And I need open and close parentheses after that. Now this doesn't have to be public. We can make this private, because we're not calling this from outside the game manager at this point. We might change that later, but for now we're only calling it from within here. So up here in the start, I can call update UI. And so as you can see here, to call a method from within a script, we just have to have the name of the method and an open and closed parentheses. And then we just end that with a semicolon. So when it runs, it's going to get here to the update UI, and then it's going to run everything in here. So that means we can come down here to our click beg button and change it to update UI, and then we can come down here and get rid of that and say update UI, just like that. Pretty simple, right? And so when we're done with that, we can save. And it's going to work exactly the same. We're going to, when it starts, our UI is going to get updated. When we click the button, we're going to change the variables, and then we're going to call this update UI. And we're going to do the same thing for the food button. And let's just go ahead and live dangerously, copy and paste, and make a click health button or sleep button. We'll say click sleep button since we were specific about the bag. We probably should name this click garbage button. And our day will still increment. Our food is going to go instead down by 1, and our health will go up by 2. So we're basically just giving ourselves always a little extra for the thing we click and taking away a little less from the item that it's penalizing. So you're always going to get ahead by clicking on the food or the sleep button, but you're also taking away a little something from something else. Now you'll notice here we got our day +1 is duplicated a lot here. So one of the things that we can do in this particular game design, now you can't get away with this in every game design, but in this one it'll work just fine, is we can increment our day every time we call that update UI. So that's going to eliminate one line of code that we're going to need out of each of our buttons. We just need now in each item here to specify the things we're changing. Notice since we're not changing money here, we don't need to specify money because these buttons don't affect the money. And we just call update UI when we're done. And now we have our day equals day +1 here. We're probably going to want to change this to 0. So we just move this down to 0, so when we come down and run our update UI, it's going to increment it to 1. And we just want to make sure that this is before this line here. And that's all there is to it. We just need to come into Unity and wire up our button, let's see, our health button here to our C# script. And so we come down here and hit plus. We drag our main camera in like so. And then we can just come down here to Game Manager and say click sleep button for sleeping on the street. So I hit play. Let's beg for some money. Make sure that works. When we sleep on the street, notice our health is going up and our food is going down. And when we eat garbage, our food is going up and our health is going down. So this is the very kind of core basic design of these life simulator games. It's really simple because all then you would do from here is build this out. You could have, instead of eating garbage, that you want to eat a sandwich, and we could just come down here, duplicate this button. We call it Eat Sandwich, like so. Remember, this doesn't change anything visually. We have to come down here to the text and say Eat Sandwich, like so. And then we drag it down. So we have Eat Garbage, we have Eat Sandwich. And let's go ahead back to our script here. And we'll make a click sandwich button. And I'm not even sure I spelled that right. I think I did. But this time we're going to go say +4 on the food. And our health will be -2. So eating the sandwich is a little better. And we're going to want money involved now. So insert money equals money -5. So we're going to charge ourselves $5. Well, that might be a little much because we're not getting enough food value for the work that we might be able to do. So let's only charge $3 for the sandwich. And that's part of the gameplay in making a good game, is coming up with, you know, what values make sense. So as you unlock things, it's fun and it's progressive. But we're just going to stick here with unlocking. Our click sandwich button will now give us more food, a little, you know, less health, and take away money this time. So we'll run it and come back here to our main camera. And we come here to our Eat Sandwich, and since we copied and paste this, it's still got the click food button in there from our Eat Garbage. But what we can do is just come in here to our game manager and just switch this over to the click sandwich button. So now when you click this, it'll call the right method. So let's run it. And we can just right out of the gate, even though we don't have money, eat a sandwich. And it just shows us that we're at -$3 now because we don't have a check on there. And so our sandwich button works as expected. It's not completely integrated. As you can see, we need a check to make sure if we run out of money, we can't buy things that cost money. And we also need, obviously, to have a clamp on our health or our food so that once it gets to a certain amount, you can't keep going up. So in our next lecture, we're going to look at how to clamp these values and not have them keep going over 100. And I will get my PC plugged in again.